So Matthew Klenowski is a technologist and professional speaker now working at infectious disease research. So we might hear at the end of it, the cure of hope at the end of it. He started Toastmasters in 1989 and served District 60 as both Pathway ambassadors and Pathway guides. He was the first member of District 60 to complete a Pathway level and the second person in the world to complete the Visionary Communication Path. He's here today to enable everyone to understand Basecamp system and a pathway and enable every member to move forward in pathways. Get ready to hear some truth, the good, the bad, and the fun of pathways. So to help me welcome Matthew, over to you.
Great. Let's see if I grab the screen by talking. It's a pleasure to be here. Glad to see you all. And I will share my screen to do the slides. It's a fairly long slide deck, so I'll move very quickly. The main thing I want to say is I've been doing this for over 3 years, and Pathways has changed. Mostly they're trying to tweak it and make it easier to use. The key thing is, as of July 1st, everyone is going to be remorseful if they don't know how to use it, because Pathways is Toastmasters education system. This is synonymous with Pathways now, Toastmasters. So we're going to learn about Basecamp, which is the online version which 99% of people use. Okay, why am I not scrolling? Here we go. I'm going to go through a couple things. We're going to do 10 things. Here you can have a quick look at the things I'm going to talk about today. Sorry, I'm jumping around. This is the outline of what I'm going to talk to in just 15 minutes. So it's going to go, let me start my own timer here to make sure I'm sort of online. We're going to talk about how to get in. How many people already know how to use Basecamp and have been in and are comfortable using it? How many people already say, I got it? Okay, so you've got a lot of people around the club that can help you and get this. Things do change. What is interesting is if you are very comfortable, but you're working on some long-term projects or you've been away from the club for a while, you go back in and say, hey, it looks different. It still changes fairly regularly, but most of the things after we log in and access Basecamp are going to be the same as they've been for 3 years. So let's get started. The key thing I need to mention before we look at Basecamp itself is don't try to use it on your smartphone. Right now, they still have failed to get it to work on smartphones. In fact, some iPads previous to iOS version 13 stopped working about 2 months ago. So it's pretty important that you're going to have a tablet or a desktop or laptop to use Basecamp on. That said, once you get in and download things, every project, all the training except for the projects which include a short video, everything can be downloaded as a PDF, and you can probably figure out how to view those on your smartphones too. So Basecamp material will be available on every device, but interactive Basecamp's a bit limited. So we're going to go through. Log in. This shouldn't shock anybody, but you start Basecamp via the Toastmasters website. So most of you have logged in. And when you go to toastmasters.org, right there, you can see on the screen, that's what you click on, log in. And after you click on login, you put in your username and password. If you don't know how to do that, say forgot password. Everyone who's a Toastmasters member has an account, whether they know it or not, on toastmasters.org. It's set up when they set up your member account, but you need to initiate it, put a password in. I think everybody can figure that out or get help from your team. Once you log in, things change. And now it'll say, welcome, Matthew. If you have the unfortunate circumstance where your name is not Matthew, it will say, welcome someone else. And you click on that someone else's name to get to your profile and access the Basecamp. This is an example of something which changed over the years. You used to have to click on the Pathways menu there in the first menu bar, but it's much simpler. Just check on your name and you'll see all this stuff. there's a whole bunch of tiles now. And we'll look at these and spend a little bit of time because different people may have different situations. On the far right, view the navigator. That's an extensive document that will be something you could spend a half hour reading, go back and revisit, and even refer to if you're ever training someone else. The navigator explains all the basics of pathways in Basecamp. That's the blue panel to the far right. In the middle is if you would like to buy a new path or you've never chosen a path, you can choose the path. And I'll talk about in this presentation quickly about choosing paths. Finally, the one you use most of the time is on the right, go to Basecamp. And if you are a VP Ed president or club secretary, you'll see that little box that says log in as Basecamp manager. You might be using Basecamp as a member or a Basecamp manager. If you're going in as a Basecamp manager, you will check that box and then push go. If you're a member of more than one club, it will say not St. Vladimir's Toastmasters. It'll be a pull down list of all the clubs you're in. You will see TD Supreme Toastmasters or Toastmasters at TD or whatever clubs you are in. Then you click the go button and you jump into pathways. Is that all clear? Somebody nod? Okay, so we're going to go on. Selecting a path. For those that you have never selected a path or have done it a long time ago, it's changed a little bit. You will select a path by making a selection saying which language. Almost everyone here will pick English. Then you will click on the one that says, I want to use digital resources online. Less than 1% of the people use printed materials because it gives you much less choice. You don't get to select your electives. You only have a limited number of paths to pick. If you want everything in print form, you can still do it from online. After you pick that, you have two choices. Do you want the system to ask you a bunch of questions, 50 questions? Take the online assessment. It will recommend 3 paths. Frankly, the assessment's interesting. It's not very fruitful to guide you. What's more important, I found, in picking a path is not what the assessment takes, but if you believe that they can find out everything you want, your inner secrets, dark secrets, and all your wishes for pathways and everything else in life, take the online assessment if you've got 20 minutes and want to see how it works. Or you can just view path options and pick the path you want. I'll address it very quickly. There are 11 paths. That's what those 11 boxes are. They each represent one of the paths. When we look at the numbers, you'll see that paths don't vary that much from each other. There are 11 paths specialized. And when I say specialized, I mean of the 14 projects that every path has, 4 are specific to each path. And there's lots of overlap. So picking one path from another might only change 1 or 2 projects out of 14 for you. Here's an example of one path, and you'll see that there are 5 levels, and you'll see the list of required courses. All those things except elective projects are required in dynamic leadership, and each of the paths has a similar list that I'll show you how to find. That means 10 projects out of 14 are required. Then you have electives of 4 projects. And those electives often are requirements in other projects. So if you pick one project, it might require you to be table topics master. And that's a role that you can use as a Pathways project. If the path you pick does not require table topics master, as a required project called active listening, it will be an elective in all the other paths. So most of the time, paths can resemble each other. So we're going back now and saying you've chosen a path. Now you're going to go to Basecamp. Now, if you look at the bottom right corner, there's also a quick shortcut. Go to my transcript. See that circled go to my transcript in the bottom right? You can just go immediately to one of your paths if you're saying. First time in, sometimes over and over again, it will remind you to disable a pop-up blocker. Different browsers and devices will have pop-up blockers that could make Basecamp not work very well. So disable your pop-up blocker. Most systems allow you to disable it per site. So if you're using a work computer that does not allow blanket pop-up blocker disabling, often you can just disable this site. Now here's what happens when you get to Basecamp. This is what you will see. This is very different for someone who hasn't been in Basecamp for 2 months. There are paths and learning. That's where you get your training. There's also resources, searching, badges, feedback, all these materials. Basically, what we're trying to do is open a curriculum that will get you training, where you can read projects, study them, access resources, download the training for offline reading as a PDF. Here's an example of my paths and learning. Well, it's actually someone else. I took someone else. Dynamic leadership says open curriculum, but there may be other training. You can look at the navigator. You can look at thousands of tutorials and resources that you can open and mark complete. What you're looking for pathways training is a curriculum that you can open. Here's dynamic leadership after I've clicked on open curriculum. There are 5 levels and then a new path step called path completion. Over in the left-hand box, you'll see the 5 levels of the path, and now they have separated and added a final step. Once you complete 5 paths, you have to say, I'm done. That has been added because when Pathways began, you had to do the 5 levels in a row. Now you can do anything you want. The icebreaker is first, and then you can do any of the projects in any order. And you'll see over on the right-hand side, the main box under dynamic leadership, the icebreaker and all 4 projects have a little blue check mark. That means they are complete. So you'll see that this person has completed all 4 steps, and level 1 has a checkbox. It's complete. You can go back and relaunch projects, which you already completed, to read them anytime again. Let's look at a level which is not complete. Level 3 is not complete. None of the projects are complete, although they have activated some electives. So you can launch any of those projects by clicking the launch button. Sometimes it will say activate, and then you activate and launch a project, and you'll go into dynamic training. So level 3, first activate, then launch any project. It'll come in a new tab. Now, this is the part that people often complain about. Say, how the heck do I use Basecamp to navigate? You need to see a screen that looks like this fully to be able to navigate within a project. The main thing I want you to see is the directions pull down at the bottom right. If you don't see that, you will not be able to navigate through the project completely. And the 2 white circles, left and right, in the middle of the screen, those are go forward and backward. If you don't see all that, you're not going to see all the training that comes up because you need those to navigate. Now, I'm going to say all the ways you can navigate. Sometimes you click a next button or you click one of those tabs. If you see a bunch of maroon tabs, click on their name to see more information. Sometimes you'll see a more button. Sometimes there will be numbers to click on in maroon tabs. Sometimes there will be a begin button. Sometimes you'll see buttons like this to click on. Sometimes you will see a more button in the bottom in the blue. And sometimes you will see call-outs. There are people who have gone through and said, I didn't see that in the training. So you need to go in and play around. I can't say they asked me how to design the user interface, but it's there. Some of it's fun, but it certainly can lead me to say, click on everything. What's the worst that can happen? But click on everything and you'll get the information. If you download the PDF, everything will be in there. All right, here's one more. Sometimes it looks like a journal and you can click on that. Particular resources have that. The most consistent way to navigate is that pull down list. So here I've clicked on that blue pull down and you will see these standard steps. Every project has these steps. Occasionally there's one or two custom ones with a particular project. The main one you need to see is assess your skills after, the bottom one. That is the one and only way to complete a project. You don't need to do anything else, actually. You can go in, click on this first, mark it complete, and fool the world that says, I've read the project, I did the speech. Not really, but I marked it complete. So what you need to do is go to assess your skills after, answer 5 questions. The last question will say, I recognize how this project applies to my life outside Toastmasters. You can pick any number from 1 to 5. Once you pick a number, the magic submit button will appear. When you click on that submit button, on the 5th question, on assess your skills after, the project gets a blue check mark and you have accomplished something. Now, what you did with your life outside of this, that's up for you. But this is important to know, how to complete a project. Once you've done that, you will see this. That man in the blue shirt will clap for you every time you feel like you need applause. You go back to this page and you will see him clapping for you. Here is competencies and other things that you can click on in this list. One of the key things is resources, your evaluation. When you click here, you will see red links under resources. That is everything you can download. Print My Project will open up a PDF you can download. So what I did, honestly, when I first joined Pathways, I joined a club in Washington, D.C. remotely. I opened every single project and downloaded them all. So I'm going to go real quick. Evaluations are online. You complete a project. When you complete a level, you will get a certificate. How you complete a level is complete all the projects and request approval to complete the level, and your Basecamp manager will complete it. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to just open for questions, and then we can see if you have the slide deck for later study. Let's go to questions and answers. I think we got 5 minutes for questions and answers, so just chime in.
You just feel free to unmute yourself. Go ahead, Anton.
Matthew, some of us are a bit more familiar with Pathways, but one of the problems I've found with Pathways is that TMI, Toastmasters International, are not very consistent in replying if you have a question or a concern. Do you have any advice that we can use in District 60 who we can contact?
Me.
Okay, great.
You can contact me, or you can look on the District 60 website, which lists Tony Nelson, who has a list of people who have agreed to answer questions.
Yeah.
They're all helpful, useful. You probably are a good person to call, Anton. I've been in it for 3 years, and frankly, I'm always online. I'm always home. So feel free to email me. I can AnyDesk in if you trust me on your computer, and I can walk you through situations. I've been a Basecamp manager for 3 years. I'm happy to help everybody.
Great. Thank you very much. That's very helpful
I'm
to
not
know.
sure people at Toastmasters International headquarters know Pathways as well as most of the members do, actually. Because they're just staff. They're not necessarily Toastmasters.
Correct.
Any other questions? Scott? And there's a lot of information.
Matthew, I'm going to ask on behalf of a lot of the new people here, what is one of the easiest paths potentially to use?
Let's pick one of the 3 paths that you're going to want to pick if you're here to learn speaking. Is VC. I picked it first. I was the first person to complete it. It includes no leadership projects. It includes a couple lengthy projects with a lot of self-discovery of your own vision and communicating a vision. I found that really useful for people who have jobs to communicate a vision. Me, I don't work so much. I'm an independent contractor. Like you mentioned, I actually work with Texas Medical Center, but they have vision too, fighting disease and infectious disease, communicating that. The two other paths are PM, presentation mastery, which is most like the traditional education program at making speeches, and engaging humor, which was an add-on path after the original 10, which is all speeches, and 4 of the projects are unique. They try to discuss and encourage humor in all speeches. Every other project includes month to several month-long leadership projects. You can do most of those as electives in any path. But if you're looking to accomplish things and move through pathways without being burdened of doing large team leadership, PM, EH, or VC are the best paths to pick. Presentation mastery and engaging humor and visionary communication. If you've done all 3 of those, by then you will have done 50-some speeches, and you can pick them again or do another path. But I think most people are satisfied with those. Feel free to examine all the other paths and find leadership projects. But a lot of those leadership projects are available anyway.
Excellent. I think
Any
we
managers out there? Go ahead.
probably have time for about one more question. Tracy?
Yeah. I have questions. Question is, if you complete your whatever level, you can print off your own certificate. That's what I heard.
Yes. Once you complete all the projects in a level in any order, you mark the level complete. Your Basecamp manager will get an email. They'll click them. It takes 30 seconds. They click on a green check mark, or if they don't believe you did it, they blank it out and you got to request it again. But they click on that green check mark and immediately becomes view certificate. So you can download and print that PDF certificate. There are many other features and pathways. We can go through them in another workshop. You can send each other certificates, badges, feedback, evaluation forms, anything you want under the feedback tab. It's just too much to try to cover in this thing. But yes, you have the certificates forever.
Okay. So you said your base manager. Is that you or someone else?
The Basecamp manager is your club president, VP Ed, and secretary. Those 3 people, as of July 1, have access to go in as Basecamp manager, see your request, and click on a green check mark button and say, you did it officially.
Okay. Thank you. That's good, clear.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Matthew. This has been, very impactful. I held the VP Ed position before, and Toastmasters, it's evident, Toastmasters, you're always learning something new. So I have some new takeaways there, and you inspired me to go back in and play around and click around. So thank you so much.